Welcome to the Game of Attention podcast, the podcast led by industry leaders exploring creative in a technologically advancing world. Hear from experts across the CPG industry, navigating creative effectiveness across channels such as advertising, e-commerce, and in-store. Released twice monthly, this is the podcast you don't want to miss.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on today's podcast. Our main topic today is we're going to look at what every brand wants to know about AI-powered creative content testing. My name is Kate Nunan. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager in Dragonfly AI. I'm joined by two of my wonderful colleagues here. So I'm going to pass over to Becky first to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Becky. I am a Senior Account Executive here at Dragonfly. And Stu, I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. I'm Stuart Pecksen. I'm product owner, so I interface between stakeholders, internal, external, and the product itself.
Perfect. Amazing. So as I mentioned, the topic today is we're going to look at what every brand wants to know about AI-powered creative. We got this list of questions from some customer testing and our own research. So we're going to start from the beginning about what are the most common questions that we get asked across our different functions. So the first question we have is, how does Dragonfly AI validate its predictions, and why should we trust AI models? So Stu, I'm going to start with yourself for that question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have a fallback answer for this, which is that, we have spent a lot of time, not me personally, but, people much smarter than myself, a decade's worth of research we're talking about here has gone into this at Queen Mary's University. And what this has meant is that we've got a model now that is accurate to 89%. In terms of predicting human attention. And so these claims have been verified against MIT's independent saliency benchmarks as well. So we have third-party verification in there as well from a very good source. So I think that kind of speaks for itself, but that's a very logical way to go down. But I'm sure human conversation often draws up other questions as well. So I don't know if maybe Becky, you've had other questions come up from customers around this.
Yeah, I think accuracy, obviously, with tools that are coming in to do this kind of validating and this kind of testing, accuracy is a massive thing, right? You don't want to be using a tool that is only going to be a certain amount accurate to test all your data. It's so important. There's a lot of amount of money on the line here. So yeah, we constantly are asked about how we're validated, how accurate we are. And yeah, it's always really nice to be able to sort of rest assured to customers how accurate we are as an AI tool, always within 10% of human interpretation, which those that are familiar with AI tools know that is pretty bang on.
Yeah, amazing. I don't think I could add anything there. I think as from Becky's point of view, it's that human concern of, you said we want to be within that 10%, and as Stuart brilliantly outlined, we're very neuroscience based and based in Queen Mary's University and neuroscience, which I think is my favorite thing to bring to people, that it's not just our word for it, it's really academically based, and it's fully based in neuroscience, which I think I'm always really proud of when I speak to my clients. Moving on to the next question, which is, how does Dragonfly AI compare to traditional methods like A/B testing, focus groups, or eye tracking studies? So Becky, I think I'm going to start with yourself on that one.
Really, some of the benefits of using Dragonfly, and I guess probably the same with a lot of AI tools in general, is this sort of time saving and cost efficiencies. Where Dragonfly is sort of bought into brands or businesses is where they realize a lot that they're spending a lot of money on, say, traditional techniques and waiting a lot of time to get those results back. We know with these kind of decisions in creative testing that they need to be made quickly and they need to be made often. So that means that it gets so expensive. Obviously, one of the benefits of using Dragonfly and sort of how our model works is you get a license for Dragonfly and that's unlimited testing. So you immediately have that cost saving and also time saving, because it's instant, literally a matter of seconds till you get your insights. So there's none of that sort of waiting around and needing to do tens of thousands of pounds every time that you're doing a different study.
Absolutely. And I might jump in there. So I completely agree with what you're saying. I think from the clients that I work with, a lot of the time when they don't have money or budget or the time to do a panel test or a focus group, I think that's when Dragonfly comes in really well as well. So again, if you think of A/B testing on something like an e-commerce site, that can take you best case 4 weeks to get back, or worst case can be up to 10 or 16 weeks. So using Dragonfly for that really quick validation point is something that is ideal. And obviously we have different features and different things on the platform itself that helps with A/B testing. So Stu, probably passing over to you on A/B testing. How do you kind of feel that matches up with traditional or compared to traditional research?
Yeah, I really focused on the word compare when you were reading the question out there. So like, I would say actually that A/B testing or multivariate testing and Dragonfly, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. It's not that you do one instead of the other. In fact, I'd say that Dragonfly enables you to do better versions of this at a much earlier stage. So saving that time and money that obviously is very important. So it's not that you do one or the other. It's just that you can do it with Dragonfly at an earlier stage in the flow.
Amazing. I completely agree with everything. Moving on to the third question. So can Dragonfly AI test creative assets across multiple formats? For example, that might be e-commerce, social, packaging, retail, and video. So Stuart, I'll start with yourself again.
Yes, is the short answer. I'd say that we're very good at supporting clients across specific use cases, using our collective expertise. We've got fantastic kind of support functions within the business to help those different use cases. But the core algorithm, it applies the same kind of universal analysis to anything that you show it. So this could apply to use cases we haven't even considered yet, which is quite exciting.
And Becky, from a sales perspective, over the conversations that you've having, how do you kind of approach that multi-function question?
It's kind of one of my favorite things when it comes up on a sales call. But like, being truly omnichannel is really one of the main sort of things about Dragonfly. We can test anything and all to the same sort of level. It's not that one is particularly better than the other. And so that is why and how we're able to scale so quickly through so many of our brands, because they're not just using us siloed into, say, pack testing. They also very quickly realize that actually they can also use us on, say, social content or out-of-home content. So used in all different types of departments. But yeah, that truly omnichannel piece is something that I love, like really unique to us. I love.
Yeah, definitely. I think even from a client or a customer perspective, I think I match that enthusiasm about being able to be that omni-channel approach. Particularly, I find a lot of the times when I start working with clients, they might bring us in as a packaging solution or as an e-commerce testing tool. But when they get into that algorithm or understanding it the way that Stuart mentioned, you can see how clients get very excited when they say, okay, great, I have all of these different considerations or projects that I need to deliver. I finally have one solution that can go across everything. So it really helps my clients kind of look at that value of, I don't need to learn a different tool or a different solution for a different project. I can take this one metric and really embed it across the business. So I think that's always really beneficial and valuable to our clients. Amazing. So on to the next question is, how do teams actually use Dragonfly AI in their workflow, and does it replace or complement existing tools?
I think particularly you're probably best to answer this one, Kate.
No worries. Yeah, I think this is something that I do see a lot with my clients. So how do we fit into workflows? I think there's kind of two different main ways that we are embedded. The first one would be kind of in that content creation. So a client, if it's a brand or someone who's making a key visual or out-of-home advert, they're going to know what works with their audience or what needs to be seen, which kind of feeds in very nicely to that second part of the question of, does Dragonfly replace tools or does it complement them? And it definitely complements them. I think it's a nice kind of silver bullet of it goes across different channels and goes across different considerations. But I always say we're not here to replace any expertise. We're here to add to it. So working with brand managers or brand teams or insight teams, they're the experts in their customers and they're the experts in their industries. You use Dragonfly to validate that you don't need to make someone work harder to see what you need them to see. So for example, we work with a lot of beauty brands. If they have a benefit on pack, like has an SPF or, a certain ingredient, and that's how your customers shop, why would you make someone work harder? So I think from a workflow perspective, that's nearly if I was to brief in my design team or design agency, what needs to be there. And I think the second part of the workflow would be kind of at that later stage of if you're in a project and you get multiple options, you can use Dragonfly to validate them down. So again, rather than trying to get the budget to go to panel testing with 8 options, you can get your 8 designs, pop them into Dragonfly and say, great, these are the best 3 or the best 4, or maybe the best 2, really depending on what other testing you want to do, and then bring it forward. So it's kind of making that efficiencies, but where does it fit into a workflow? I think it kind of fits it at any stage.
Yeah.
Stuart, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the key thing here is that different teams and organisations have got different goals, and perhaps depending on their ambition, there could be impact on different areas of their workflow. It could be changing small parts of it, or could be kind of more radical big changes. But from my experience speaking to clients, speaking to prospects, anybody I speak to about this, they definitely seem to have like a tendency and a preference to try and keep human in the loop at some stage. All those fantastic reasons that Kate, you just said, they're going to understand all the nuances of the business. So yeah, I think human in the loop is the best way.
Yeah. I was just going to add, sort of back to your point, Kate, around the workflows. Really, what is so nice to see is that a lot of our clients have this sort of always on mentality, and where you say sort of where is best to use Dragonfly, it's really whenever, and that is reflected on how our clients are using us, like always on, testing every single piece of content that goes out. And yeah, I guess that's sort of the main goal, or the crux of using Dragonfly, is that it is literally used for every single thing every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the benefits as well is you do get that support when anyone works with Dragonfly to kind of start off, where can I put it in my workflow as well, which is always a good shout out to have. Amazing. Next question. So how does Dragonfly AI handle text-heavy creatives like packaging, claims, or call to action buttons? So Stuart, I might start with yourself.
Yeah, okay. So I suppose the key thing to note here is that the attention algorithm, it's precognitive, so it's agnostic to the content. However, we are looking at potential ways to add layers to our analysis to help the analysis to understand what it's looking at, and to help with the taxonomy of tagging up these different things and looking at the location of them and assessing the location and the impact that has. So it's something we're looking at actively. We know it's important, but yeah, the key thing is that the core algorithm is completely agnostic. It doesn't at the moment read the text, but watch this space.
Yeah, amazing. Becky, do you have anything to add there?
No, all sort of said by Stu there.
Perfect. Yeah, I think the only thing I can really think of again is it probably relates back to that workflow question, or our clients will have things that they have like brand toolkits or best practice principles. So I think having text heavy elements is often covered in that. So again, you can use Dragonfly to validate what good looks like by getting scores or getting regions for text heavy elements. And again, kind of coming back to that A/B testing. So you can use Dragonfly to help validate your gut feel of like, why is the text there? If you need someone to see it or engage with it. So as Stuart mentioned, the Dragonfly platform doesn't read the text, but it can let you know if it's easy to see. And if you do need someone to see it, don't make them work harder than they need to. I think anyone knows if you have to look for information, you're going to give up, and that's potentially a missed sale or a misclick or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and of course, if those text elements do form part of like an intended visual hierarchy within a design, for example, we can still analyze that. We can still rank all of your assets based on that as well. So it doesn't have to understand it necessarily at this stage for pure attention analysis. Yeah, just wanted to jump in with that, sorry.
Amazing. And I think that actually very nicely brings us into the next question, which is what's the ROI of using Dragonfly? So can you prove that optimized creative leads to better conversion rates or sales?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to sort of give it a go and sort of start with that. I think return on investment for Dragonfly, I've mentioned it already, but like those speed to efficiencies and saving money is sort of the main goal. But there's a lot of other sort of returns on investment that you can get when it comes to creative, dependent on your success metric, obviously. And that obviously for us is quite broad because we're omni-channel and there's different success metrics dependent on your content type. But it's not rare that we see a lot of our customers seeing incredible like returns on investment. So results of sort of increasing attention on X element and the changes it has in click-through rates, for example. So we hear it sort of a lot in terms of the return on investment that Dragonfly is bringing, and not just, obviously, like I said, particularly in one particular case, it's sort of omni-channel, so there's a lot of different success metrics there.
Stuart, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so absolutely right. It's not rare to hear really good success stories from our clients, and our clients, they want to stay with us, and we're hearing more and more that they want to roll us out across different regions, different teams as well. So I think that speaks volumes to the ROI that they're already seeing in the way that you're using it. But logically, it stands to reason in terms of like a very basic proof that the greater the chance of perception, the greater the chance of conversion from like an end user perspective as well. So that's like a very core kind of piece of logic that I tend to fall back on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a point that Becky raised as well, kind of around that A/B testing or infusing something into your ways of working. So again, if you know that something works really well, or if you had a past campaign, you can use Dragonfly to look at it like logically. So not saying, oh, it was the makeup of the image of the, I don't know, whatever it might have been in it. I can say, right, the call to action was a certain size, or the product itself took up so much space in the image, and it kind of nearly gives you like a wireframe or maybe a blueprint of success that you can kind of take really logically and rinse and repeat, not to infringe on any creativity, but it's kind of coming back to nearly like what is a binary way to look at good creative. And I think that's kind of something that Dragonfly can help with, to help ROI and to help sales of, if you have something that works before, what was it about it that worked, and kind of how do you do that? And again, to Becky's point of, we do that with clients all the time. We can run our tests, run our A/B pieces. We have clients who give us success metrics and data, or it goes back to that efficiencies of, if I can make a test cycle, or if I need to get to market with something within a month or in 2 months, where can I make those efficiencies? I think that's really key as well. Next question is, what are the biggest challenges companies face when adopting Dragonfly AI, and how do you help to overcome them? I think there's a mix of all of us in this question again, which is quite nice.
Well, I was about to say, you're probably, again, best fitted to answer this, but I can give it a go and sort of lead you in. But I think one of the main challenges is not really specific to Dragonfly. I think it's specific to any tool that anyone's bringing in. Is it's just different, right? People have got something else that they need to be using, so it's more sort of like the usage of how to use it, which only takes like a training session, super easy to do. But yeah, it's just getting that sort of engrossed into what is probably quite a normal workflow, and then adding that as sort of another layer. But what I can say is that our incredible customer success team are incredible at making sure that they are able to sort of understand what's going on within the business at the moment before they've got Dragonfly, where we would fit perfectly, and then also training them to be absolute experts at using Dragonfly, which obviously helps. If you know how to use the tool and you're very confident with using the tool, then you overcome that challenge of being wary.
Yeah, and I was actually going to say that it probably starts in the beginning. So I don't think a customer team it can take all the responsibility, I think, from the initial conversations that we have. When a client starts to engage with Dragonfly, there is that real, it can do anything across any use case and kind of go anywhere. So I think it's really setting up from the beginning of, it's not so much like a challenge that the company faces, but it's really like, well, why are you using an AI solution and what's the value? I've been in Dragonfly for 3.5 years. I think when I joined, everyone didn't really trust AI. And now we're at the other end of that road or that street where, everyone wants to use AI and they see the efficiencies and they see the value. So it's nearly trying to align the expectations with the right outcomes. So I think that it's a really exciting challenge to have. And I think Dragonfly do really well from that initial, how they speak to us or how they engage with us, they get a real clear idea of where we fit in workflows and what are the answers that you can get from Dragonfly, and why is AI useful within an existing workflow, rather than retraining them and repeating. And as you said, from that adoption perspective, it is that training session. It is being able to pick up a solution or a tool with one or two training sessions and get it embedded quite nicely, which I think is really good. Stu, do you have anything to add?
Yes, similar experience to yourself, Kate. I think we've been at the company similar kind of time frame. You're a little bit longer than me, but yeah, the trust in AI piece has definitely shifted over the last few years. There's still a little bit of skepticism, but it's a very, from my perspective, it's a very quick conversation. Most of the time when people are referencing AI, and obviously we've got AI in our title, so it's a logical question, but most of the time when they're questioning it, they're thinking of these large language models like ChatGPT and things like this, because obviously it's blown up in that time frame. So it's a very quick conversation to say, look, we're not generative. Our core IP is very much predictive to help you to save time and money, and that's it. But then there's a couple of questions around like data security as well. But obviously we've got very good kind of core infrastructure to overcome those questions as well.
Yeah, and I think it's probably something we haven't mentioned around probably the embedding around like how companies use us. I think because we're omni-channel as well, I think that also helps to remove a barrier, that it isn't a e-commerce team taking in a solution and then an insights team taking in a solution. It can be really a one-stop shop, which I think makes us unique. And from a company perspective, it gives it a singular metric or a singular tool to use, which is always really beneficial.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So the next question is, how does Dragonfly AI adapt to cultural, regional or language differences? So Stuart, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned a couple of times at the moment during this conversation, that it's agnostic of what it's looking at. It's precognitive, and the key thing about that kind of precognitive stage is that it's before any biases kick in. So before like gender, age, culture, anything else that you might consider to be a bias on a human level kicks in. It means it's universally applicable, and so yeah, it doesn't need to have any kind of adaptation in that regard. I mean, different teams might use it in different ways across the globe, and maybe Kate, you can speak to that a little bit. But the core tech doesn't need to adapt.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was what I was going to say. Again, kind of coming back to the point of it is that human in the loop of our clients are the experts in their customer base or the region that they're in or the market or whatever it might be. And you use Dragonfly to validate that. But luckily, our algorithm is agnostic. So it is that step before. So it is that universal piece, which I quite like. Becky, I'm going to give the next one to you. So I think you probably get this question more than myself or Stuart, given your role. But how do you handle skepticism from teams who are used to making the creative decisions themselves, like based on intuition? So how do you kind of use Dragonfly to help make decision flows, or how do you handle that skepticism?
Yeah, sure. It's actually like one of the main things as well that I hear from customers when I'm having like an initial call is they're like, Becky, like, this is amazing. I've been looking for something that would tell my team that actually red works better than blue, but we've always just gone with blue because it's tradition. It's what we've always done. I've had an like instinctive feeling that red would work better. And really where Dragonfly is amazing is it gives you that data point of saying X is X amount better. And you sort of can't argue with the data. Like, data is king, we all know. But particularly for this and these kind of decisions where it's just always normally based upon what preference, we have sort of that layer of data added into things that normally is quite sort of subjective. So yeah, like one of the main things I hear is that Dragonfly settles a lot of arguments, which is great.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think from my perspective as well, I think it's interesting. I think when some customers first come on board, you have people who are very used to their panel testing or very used to not needing to sense check. So I think there can be not tension. I think that's the wrong word, but I think from a company or a global level, when clients on board Dragonfly, they want to do it for all the right reasons, for embedding best practice. And then you might need a little bit of work to get someone on board who's very used to making their own decisions. But as you say, it does ultimately help them validate their own gut feeling, or I've had clients refer to it as it reduces the internal swirl of people going around and around in a conversation. And often I find that it kind of just proves that people are right. So it's not, or like people prefer something and they can't really figure out why. And then they put it into Dragonfly and it does happen to score the way that they think that it should. So I think people are really intuitive when it comes to creative content. It just, sometimes they can't quite put their finger on it. And I think that's where Dragonfly comes in. It really does help validate those conversations or put to bed or put to an end some pieces that could be taking hours of meetings, when you can just put it into Dragonfly and within 2 minutes have your answer.
Yeah, it really helps with that sort of brand and agency partnership as well. You hear that a lot where brands are wanting to sort of say to their agency that they would like X to be done, but they need that sort of data point to say why it should be done. Also, the flip side where agency has a sort of new design and then they can say, we did this because it is X amount more attention grabbing. So it really helps there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not just internal conversations, it's that how do you put into practice something subjective like creative? So that's a really, really good point. Stuart, do you have anything to add on that?
Not really, no. Just that, intuition can be fallible, and it's nice to have a tool that can point out sometimes. Just that kind of like core objective truth that you can rely on, I think is key. So I don't think I don't know. Maybe Becky, you handle this a lot more as an objection, but it's not something I hear of too much. I don't think it's too prevalent.
Be careful what you wish for, Stuart. You might get looped into some calls.
Yeah.
And then finally, we're going to look at the last question, which is, how does Dragonfly AI help brands to benchmark their creative performance against competitors? So Stuart, I'll start with yourself.
Yeah, last year we brought in a couple of really key features in this regard. So the first one was around analysing your content within its natural environment, within its context. And then we leverage a whole different variety of ways to get data into the platform to compare against. So we have this idea of having context packs. So you get a nice kind of really valid amount of data to test against. So if you're testing it in multiple environments that it could appear in the real world, you're getting a nice score across all of those. But then you can compare that against, say, competitor content. And you can do competitor content in a couple of different kind of tools that we offer. Yes, and then on top of our context packs, we're able to offer benchmark content, and you can upload benchmark content into the platform. And benchmark content can be your own content from historic historic campaigns, for example, but it could also be competitor content that's live out there at the moment that you want to say, I need my creative to be at this particular level before it goes live, and that's a really nice benchmark to be able to hit. So those two tools really help in that regard.
Really like that. Yeah. So Becky, have you shown that kind of benchmarking feature? Is it something you get asked about on your calls?
Yeah, I mean, it is a question that we get asked loads because the whole point is to make sure that you stand out more on shelf over competition in a really busy environment. So that's kind of like something that Dragonfly is used for all the time. So I make sure that I do show it in as many calls as possible to start with. But it really, really doesn't take long. So say if you are speaking to a pharmaceutical brand, it's not hard for me to get competitor content from sort of images online and show that in a live demo. But yeah, it's a question that gets asked a lot, and yeah, it's so nice to show that the tool actually has that sort of benchmark piece already built into it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's kind of funny. I think the one thing that we haven't mentioned, which seems so obvious now, is that ability to do unlimited testing. So having that good data source, or being able to upload your content, understand what good looks like, and get those kind of scores. And that could be done at a rudimentary Excel level, which is you can get your data really quickly, understand, what a good call to action score should be, or what a good product image score should be. As you said, it can be competitor, it could be your top performing content from last year. So I think that's one of the things that I also love about Dragonfly is the power is really in your hands. You can get some of our normative scores, and we absolutely have normative benchmarks, or you can use that feature, or again, you can be as bespoke or kind of as internally agile as you need to be. So I think that's really very beneficial when it comes to benchmarking or making the best of an AI solution to suit yourself.
What I also love about benchmarks in Dragonfly specifically is that it doesn't just have to be a single benchmark. For example, I can load in my historic content and say, well, I'm performing better than that, but I'm still not performing as good as my current competitor's campaign. So yeah, it's interesting to have those two different markers or multiple.
I love it. It's like, can you benchmark? Yes. It's like, how much benchmarking do you want to do? Well, that's completely up to completely up to you. Amazing, guys. That was all of our top 10 questions. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope anyone listening has learned a lot about Dragonfly, or Becky, I hope you get less of these questions again and again. But yeah, you never know. But thank you so much.
Different questions now, more interesting ones.
Yeah, that would be good. You can just point them towards the podcast. But thank you so much for joining me. I think I learned a lot as well, which is always good, and nice to kind of see how we all have different ways of thinking about the same question. I thought it was fun.
Amazing. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Your support helps us keep bringing you fresh insights and expert advice. Want more content like this? Head over to dragonflyai.co and check out our resources page. Thanks for listening to Game of Attention. See you next time.